My maternal grandfather, Toshihiko Ishikawa, died just a few months shy of my birth. Perhaps the timing speaks for itself. My mother certainly insists that our spirits are somehow intertwined. I often catch her tracing ancestral threads in my face and mannerisms. You know, you two are so much alike. You're named after him, she reminds me. Who knew that pride and grief could be sung in the same key? I suppose in the same way one can miss loved ones they've never met. 7 months into the pandemic, in what I'm guessing to be a fit of cabin fever and a moment of heightened existential dread, my mother decides to clean out all of her closets. The smell of old clothes, an avalanche of well-loved purses, a hodgepodge of stowaway business cards wedged in forgotten corners, a handmade kimono gifted to her from her favorite aunt, her father's sister. All of my mother's possessions become reanimated under the searing light of her fervor. Piled under 30 years' worth of coagulated memories, she rediscovers an old tape recording of my grandfather's voice. I didn't realize I had this, she says. Your oba-chan waited in front of the radio with a tape recorder to capture his segment. She was so proud of your oji-chan. The segment details my grandfather's learnings, impressions, and moments of cross-cultural collaboration while teaching in a Japanese language program in Argentina. An avid and deeply committed educator himself, this family story has been shared with me as one of my grandfather's greatest moments of joy and accomplishment. Not too long after the segment aired, he fell ill with cancer. This recording documents one of his last earthbound missions. I asked my mother to send multiple digitized copies of my grandfather's recording. For your art, she knowingly asks. With each request to re-record a digitized copy, she, with increasing exasperation, explains that her tape recorder cannot rewind tapes. She had no other option but to listen to the 45-minute tape in its entirety before getting to her father's segment. I have to listen to a whole sumo match. I don't even like wrestling. I have no idea why your oba-chan recorded all of that, she playfully complains. I refrain from pointing out the obvious parallel as she wrestled with both the technology and my request. I wonder what this must be stirring up for her. There must be a word that encapsulates the experience of encountering a piece of music for the first time. The way a turn of phrase, a tone, a rhythmic pulse, or a succession of chords awakens inherited memories is nothing short of a dopamine-fueled rush of self-recognition. There is magic in discovering that there is some part of us that hovers in the ether, elusive, free, and just as real, available for activation. Perhaps this is as accurately as I can describe the lightning bolt that traveled down my spine upon hearing my grandfather's voice for the first time. Electric, awakening. Because he was born under the Uranian static of Aquarius season, I knew it was only a matter of time before he figured out how to hack airwaves from the other side of the veil. Many Japanese last names invoke and pay homage to the natural surroundings that populate and sustain the island. Mori, for example, is a common Japanese last name that translates to forest. It's written by stacking 3 kanji characters for the word tree into the shape of a pyramid. My matrilineal last name, Ishikawa, is written by combining the kanji characters for the words stone and river. For the majority of my life, when asked about my Japanese last name, I'd offer a dismissive and decidedly unsatisfying translation. Oh, it just means rock river, I'd say, a flattened, clunky translation that would land as a clumsy thump on my tongue. As I listened to my grandfather recount the tale of his 2-year program in Argentina in the early to mid-'80s, his cadence, rhythm, and the slight lift of his coastal accent offered a new understanding of my matrilineal last name. His testimony settles into my ears as a song I've never heard. Suddenly, the clunk thump of rock river modulates to a trickle, the sound of a pebbled creek with glistening stones resting along the bank, polished by time and gentle yet steadfast movement. As he worked to build excitement in his narrative, I heard in his voice the sound of waves crashing into sea-worn cliffs, and then a waterfall, cascading, shattering upon contact with boulders that resemble the curvature of my grandmother's shoulders. I heard the gurgling murmur of a bubbling thermal spring in the undercurrent of quiet hope that ignited each of his wishes for the future. The song in my grandfather's voice illuminated our ancestral partnership with stone and water. As I become alert to the animacy and sonic language of water, I acquire tools to decipher ancestral sonar that I might otherwise miss. By reactivating our familial tie with landscape through memory and sound, I renew original agreements to forge futures anchored in reciprocity and deep listening. Water teaches me to stay rooted in habits of remembrance. Sound is ephemeral, but it clings to the body like silk. It collects in cellular vaults, resurfacing to consciousness as an unrelenting earworm, a private hum, a visceral flashback. In each instance, I am reminded that music is not just organized sound, captured and contained, but the consequence of my relationships to bodies, processes, spaces, presences, and memories. Lakes, puddles, and tears join me in concert on my walks through Golden Gate Park. They are thought partners in remembrance, informing how I listen for patterns of change. In October 2019, just before the impending pandemic, I took a trip to Japan with my mother and partner, my first time there in nearly 2 decades. We traveled to a small rural town just outside of Kyoto to visit Lake Biwa, an approximately 4 million-year-old body of water resembling the short-necked Japanese lute that it's named after. Considered one of the oldest lakes in the world, Lake Biwa continues to feed, shelter, and nourish its biodiverse inhabitants who rely on this source. In the days leading up to our departure from San Francisco to Japan, my mother repeatedly mentioned the mysterious pull she felt to visit Lake Biwa, despite her perceived lack of personal and ancestral connection to the site. Upon our return to Tokyo, we visited my great-aunt, who, to our utmost surprise, revealed that Lake Biwa runs through the veins of our family lineage too. Bodies of water continue to teach me about reciprocity, shared responsibility, and the cyclical relationship between departure and return. My attempts to learn the language of water through acts of sonic correspondence place me in alignment over and over again with primordial agreements that I believe we're being called to revisit at this time.